Kunle Adebayo's black SUV rolled into the compound, headlights cutting through the grey afternoon. The driver slowed when he saw something at the gate, something that did not belong there, a wheelchair. A small suitcase tipped on its side, a plastic bag with medicines soaking in muddy water. His mother sitting helplessly in the wheelchair, her hands shaking, her face tilted up to the sky as if she could see the rain with her skin. She was crying, not loudly, not in a way that begged attention, just soft, broken sounds, like someone trying not to disturb anyone, even while drowning. Kunle's heart stopped. "Mama?" he whispered. His blind mother turned her head slowly, hearing his voice. Water ran down her cheeks, mixing with tears. Her wrapper clung to her legs. Her shawl was gone. Her hands searched the air like a child reaching for a familiar face. "Kunle," she said, her voice thin. "Is that you?" Kunle jumped out of the car, his shoes splashing in puddles. He ran to her and dropped to his knees like he had forgotten he was a billionaire, forgotten he owned half the city, forgotten he was supposed to be strong. All he could see was his mother, outside, like a piece of trash someone tossed away. He grabbed her wet hands. "Who did this to you?" His mother's lips trembled. She tried to smile the way she always did when she didn't want trouble. "It is nothing," she whispered. "Please, don't be angry." Kunle stared at the locked front door. The curtains moved slightly, like someone was watching. He stood up slowly, rain dripping from his hair, his chest rising and falling too fast, his fists tightened. The door opened. His wife, Ifeoma, stepped out onto the veranda like she had been waiting for this moment. She held a cup of tea, calm and dry, like the storm did not exist. "Oh," she said, blinking slowly. "You're back early." Kunle's voice came out low, dangerous. "Why is my mother outside?" Ifeoma's eyes flicked to the wheelchair and the soaked belongings. For just 1 second, something cold flashed across her face, annoyance, not guilt. "She wanted fresh air," Ifeoma said, shrugging. "And the rain started suddenly. You know how the weather is." Kunle stared at her like he did not know her anymore. His mother spoke again, quickly, like she was trying to protect someone from fire. "Kunle, please," she begged. "Don't fight, don't shout. It will scatter your home." Scatter your home. Those words hit Kunle harder than the rain. Because his mother had always said things like that. Always, even when she was sick, even when she was ignored, even when she was treated like she didn't matter. Kunle looked at his mother's soaked medicine bag. He saw the pill bottles floating in brown water. He looked at her thin arms, shivering. Then he looked at Ifeoma again. "I travelled out of the country," Kunle said slowly, "and left you with one job." Ifeoma took a small sip of tea. "Kunle, you're being dramatic." That word, dramatic, made something snap inside him. Kunle stepped closer to the door, his shoulders squared. His voice was still calm, but it sounded like a warning. "Open the door," he said. Ifeoma sighed like a tired queen dealing with a stubborn servant. She moved aside, letting him enter. Kunle pushed the door open and rolled his mother inside, his hands gentle, his eyes burning. The living room was warm, bright, clean. Too clean. Like nothing painful had ever happened in it. Kunle took his mother's wet scarf from the wheelchair handle, except it wasn't there. He looked around, confused. Then he noticed something near the trash can. A shawl, his mother's shawl, soaked, crumpled, half inside the bin. Kunle froze. He slowly walked to the trash can and pulled it out. His mother's scent clung to it, shea butter and menthol balm. The same smell he remembered from childhood when she used to rub his chest at night when he had cough. His throat tightened. He turned to Ifeoma. Why was her shawl in the trash? Ifeoma's smile thinned. "Maybe the maid put it there." Kunle's eyes narrowed. "Where is the maid?" "She went to the market," Ifeoma replied quickly. Too quickly, Kunle didn't speak for a moment. He just listened. Not to Ifeoma, to the house. Because for the first time, the house felt like it had secrets in every corner. Then his mother whispered, almost like she couldn't stop the truth from slipping out. She said, "I smell," Mama said softly. "She said my wheelchair makes the house look ugly." Kunle's head whipped around. "Mama!" His mother flinched at the sharpness in his voice and rushed to cover it up. "But she didn't mean it," Mama added quickly. "She was just tired. I am old. I understand." Kunle stared at her. His mother was protecting the very person who threw her outside, and that broke him in a way anger never could. Kunle took a deep breath. "Mama, look at me." "I can't see, my son," she said gently. He swallowed hard. "Then listen to me. I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at whoever made you think you deserve this." Ifeoma laughed, short and fake. "Kunle, don't start acting like a movie hero." Kunle turned toward her. His voice stayed quiet, but his words landed like stones. "Did you push her outside?" Ifeoma lifted her chin. "I told you, she wanted air." Kunle took one step forward, then another, until he was close enough that Ifeoma's smile finally started to shake. "I asked you a simple question," Kunle said. "Did you push my mother outside?" Ifeoma's eyes darted away for 1 second, just one. Kunle saw it, and he understood something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. This was a habit, years of something hidden. Kunle walked past Ifeoma and went straight to the hallway. He opened the small storage room where extra chairs and boxes were kept. Inside, he found a damp cardboard carton. He pulled it out and opened it. His mother's things were inside: her Bible, her old framed photo of Kunle's late father, her slippers, folded wrappers, even her walking stick, though she barely used it anymore, all packed like someone was preparing to send her away. Kunle stood there, staring at the box, his breathing slow and heavy. Behind him, Ifeoma's voice rose, sharp. "Why are you looking inside boxes like a thief? Are you coming here to insult me?" Kunle didn't answer. He carried the box into the living room and placed it on the center table. Then he walked back to his mother, crouched beside her wheelchair, and spoke gently. "Mama," he said, "how long has this been happening?" His mother's lips pressed together. She shook her head quickly. "No," she whispered. "Don't ask me that." Kunle's eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. "Mama," he said again, "how long?" His mother's voice broke. "A long time," she admitted, barely audible. Kunle's heart pounded. Outside, thunder cracked so loud that the windows shook. And just then, like the rain itself carried a witness, someone knocked hard on the door. Kunle looked up. The security guard stood there, soaked, frightened, holding an umbrella above his head like a shield. "Sir," the guard said urgently, "the neighbors, they are outside. They said they have been wanting to tell you something for years. They said today, they can't keep quiet anymore." Kunle stood slowly. He looked at Ifeoma. For the first time, Ifeoma looked truly afraid. Kunle's voice was low, controlled, and final. "Let them in," he said, and as the door opened wider, voices rose from outside, angry, shaking, full of truth that had been locked up for too long. But the first name they shouted wasn't Ifeoma's. It was Kunle's mother's name. And Kunle realized this story was bigger than one rainy day. It was a whole hidden life. As the neighbors stepped into the living room, one woman pointed at Ifeoma and cried, "Tell him what you did the day his mother fell in the bathroom." Kunle's blood ran cold. "What bathroom?" he demanded, while his mother began to shake like she remembered something she had tried to forget. Kunle did not sit down. He stood in the middle of the living room, rainwater still dripping from his clothes, his eyes moving from face to face as the neighbors slowly entered his house. These were people he greeted every morning when he was home. People who smiled and waved. People who said, "Good afternoon, sir." Now they could barely look him in the eye. The woman who spoke first was Mrs. Balogun, the elderly neighbor who lived 2 houses away. Her wrapper was soaked, her headscarf tied in a hurry. Her hands shook as she pointed toward Ifeoma. "You asked about the bathroom," Mrs. Balogun said, her voice tight. "Sir, your mother fell there last year." Kunle's heart slammed hard in his chest. He turned slowly to his mother. "Mama?" His mother stiffened in her wheelchair, her fingers curled into the fabric of her wrapper. "I slipped," she said quickly. "It was my fault. I didn't want trouble." Kunle looked back at Mrs. Balogun. "What happened?" Mrs. Balogun swallowed. "Your wife locked the bathroom door from outside." The room went silent. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Kunle's ears rang. Locked. The door? Yes, another voice said. This time it was a young man, Sadiq, who ran a small shop near the gate. We heard her crying that day, crying for a long time. Kunle felt dizzy. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. Ifeoma laughed suddenly, loud, sharp. This is madness, she said. You people want to destroy my marriage with lies? Mrs. Balogun turned to her, anger flashing in her eyes. Lies? You think we forgot how you shouted at the old woman? How you told her she was pretending to be weak? Kunle's head snapped toward Ifeoma. You shouted at my mother? Ifeoma crossed her arms. She is not a child. She should learn to move carefully. Kunle stared at her like she had spoken in a strange language. Mrs. Balogun continued, her voice breaking now. We broke the door, sir. We forced it open. Your mother was on the floor. She had been there for hours, wet, cold. Kunle felt something hot rise behind his eyes. Mama, he whispered, why didn't you tell me? His mother lifted her face toward his voice. Her eyes were empty, but her pain was clear. You worked so hard, she said softly. You loved her. I did not want to be the reason your home broke. Kunle dropped to his knees in front of her. You were never the problem, he said. Never. A loud scoff came from Ifeoma. So now everyone is acting like saints, she snapped. Did anyone offer to take her into their own house? No, they just want to judge me. Kunle stood up slowly. He walked toward Ifeoma, stopping a few steps away. You locked my blind mother in a bathroom, he said calmly. You insulted her. You threw her outside in the rain. Ifeoma lifted her chin. And? Was I supposed to worship her? That word, worship, cut through Kunle like a blade. He laughed once, a short, empty sound. I built this house, he said quietly. I filled it with comfort. I thought I filled it with love. He turned to the neighbors. Why didn't anyone call me? Sadiq lowered his head. Sir, she warned us. She said if we spoke, she would make our lives hard. You know her family. You know their power. Kunle nodded slowly. He did know. Ifeoma came from a powerful family, connections, influence, noise. But Kunle had something stronger now. Truth. Kunle took his phone from his pocket. Ifeoma, he said, where were you when I called you from the airport today? She hesitated. Just a second. I was at home, she replied. Kunle tapped his screen and turned it toward her. A video played. It was short, shaky, recorded from across the street. It showed Ifeoma pushing the wheelchair toward the gate. It showed her dragging out a suitcase. It showed her locking the door. The rain had already started. A soft cry filled the room, not from Ifeoma, from Kunle's mother. Oh God, she whispered. The neighbors murmured. Ifeoma's face drained of color. Who sent you that? She demanded. Kunle's jaw tightened. Someone who finally got tired of being afraid. Ifeoma's voice rose. You think this video will ruin me? Kunle looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time without love blinding him. No, he said. Your actions already did. Silence fell again. Kunle turned to his mother. Mama, I am sorry, he said. I left you in danger. She reached out and touched his arm. You did not know. I should have known, he replied. Kunle stood and faced Ifeoma fully now. You packed her things, he said. Where were you planning to take her? Ifeoma did not answer. Kunle stepped closer. Answer me. Her lips trembled. Then she snapped, her voice sharp with anger and fear. There is a place, she said. A home. Old people stay there. It would have been easier. Kunle felt his heart break open. A home, he repeated. Without telling me? She is not my responsibility, Ifeoma shouted. I married you, not your past. That was it. Kunle felt something settle inside him. Cold, clear. He turned to the security guard. Call my lawyer. Ifeoma laughed again, but this time it sounded weak. You won't dare. Kunle did not look at her. I dare. The guard nodded and rushed out. Kunle walked to his mother and gently wiped her face with a clean cloth. He wrapped her in a dry blanket and lifted her carefully. I am taking my mother upstairs, he said to everyone. When I come back down, we will talk. As he carried her away, Ifeoma shouted after him, If you walk away now, don't come back crying when the world turns against you. Kunle paused at the stairs. He turned back and looked at her one last time. "The world already turned against you," he said. "It just waited for me to see it." He carried his mother upstairs and placed her on the bed gently, like she was made of glass. "Mama," he said softly, "you will never be afraid again." She held his hand tightly. Downstairs, voices rose, phones rang, doors opened and closed. Kunle stood by the window upstairs, staring at the rain as it slowed to a light drizzle. Then his phone buzzed. A message from his lawyer. "Sir, there is something you should know. This is not the first complaint against your wife." Kunle's breath caught. "What kind of complaints?" he typed. The reply came quickly. "About another elderly woman. From before your marriage." Kunle's hands began to shake. Another woman. Before him. His heart pounded as a terrifying thought formed in his mind. What if his mother was not the first? Kunle turned slowly from the window, his eyes dark with a new kind of fear, as one question echoed in his mind. How many people had suffered in silence before he finally came home early? Kunle did not sleep that night. Even after the rain stopped, even after the house went quiet, his mind stayed loud. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the image again. His blind mother outside in the rain, shaking, crying beside her belongings, like she had been erased from her own home. He sat on the edge of the bed upstairs, watching his mother breathe as she slept. She looked smaller than he remembered, older, tired in a way rest could not fix. "How long did you suffer like this?" he whispered to himself. His phone buzzed again. Another message from his lawyer. "Sir, I suggest we meet first thing in the morning. There are records, statements. This situation is deeper than we thought." Kunle's chest tightened, deeper. That word scared him more than anger ever could. He stood up quietly and walked into his study. The room smelled of leather books and old wood. This was where he made big decisions, deals worth millions, choices that shaped companies and lives. Yet none of those decisions had ever felt as heavy as the one pressing on his chest now. He sat down and called his lawyer. "Tell me everything," Kunle said. There was a pause on the line. "Sir," the lawyer began carefully, "before you married Ifeoma, there was a complaint filed against her family. It involved an elderly househelp, a woman in her late 60s. Kunle closed his eyes. What happened to her? She claimed she was locked out of the house overnight during Harmattan. She fell sick after that. The case disappeared." "Disappeared?" Kunle asked sharply. "Yes, the family settled it quietly." Kunle leaned back in his chair, his heart beating hard. "So this is who she has always been," he said slowly. "It appears so," the lawyer replied. "Sir, your mother fits a pattern." That sentence landed like a slap. Pattern. Kunle ended the call and sat still, staring at nothing. Downstairs, a door creaked. Kunle stiffened. He stood up and walked quietly to the top of the stairs. Below, the living room light was on. Ifeoma stood there, pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was low but sharp. "He has turned everyone against me," she was saying. "Yes, I know what I did. But this marriage cannot end like this." Kunle stayed hidden, listening. "I need help," Ifeoma continued. "If this goes public, it will ruin everything." She stopped pacing. "No," she snapped. "I will not apologize to that woman." Kunle's hands curled into fists. That woman. Not his mother. Just that woman. Kunle stepped down the stairs slowly. Ifeoma froze when she saw him. She ended the call quickly and forced a smile. "Kunle, you should be resting." Kunle's voice was calm, but it carried weight. "Who were you talking to?" "No one important," she replied. Kunle nodded once. "Pack a bag." Ifeoma blinked. "What?" "Pack a bag," he repeated. "You will not sleep in this house tonight." Her eyes widened. "You can't send me out like a criminal." Kunle stepped closer. "You sent my blind mother out in the rain." Silence fell. For a moment, Ifeoma looked like she might cry. Then her face hardened. "You chose her over me," she said bitterly. Kunle shook his head slowly. "No, I chose right over wrong." She laughed, cold and sharp. "You think the world will clap for you? People will ask questions. They will dig into your life too." Kunle met her gaze. "Let them." Ifeoma grabbed her bag angrily and stormed toward the door. Before she left, she turned back. "She never told you because she knew the truth," Ifeoma said quietly. "She knew you would always choose her." Kunle's jaw tightened. "She stayed silent because she loved me." Ifeoma scoffed and slammed the door behind her. Kunle stood there, breathing slowly, feeling the weight of everything collapse and rebuild at the same time. Morning came too quickly. By sunrise, the compound was busy. Neighbors whispered. Security guards stood straighter than usual. Word had already spread. Kunle dressed his mother himself that morning. He fed her, combed her hair, and helped her into a new wheelchair he ordered overnight. "Mama," he said gently, "we are going somewhere today." "Where?" she asked softly. "To a place where no one will ever hurt you again." She nodded, trusting him completely. As they moved toward the car, Mrs. Balogun approached, tears in her eyes. "God bless you, sir," she said. "We should have spoken earlier." Kunle nodded. "You are speaking now. That matters." They drove off, but halfway down the road, Kunle's phone rang. "Unknown number," he answered. "Kunle Adebayo," a calm female voice said. "I have been waiting for this day." Kunle tightened his grip on the phone. "Who is this?" "My name is Esther," the woman replied. "I used to work for your wife's family." Kunle's heart raced. "What do you want?" "I want to tell you the truth," Esther said, "about what happens to old people in that family." Kunle swallowed hard. "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe," she replied, "but not for long." Kunle glanced at his mother, sitting quietly beside him, unaware of the storm growing again. "Please," Esther continued, her voice shaking now, "if you don't listen, your mother won't be the last." Kunle's blood ran cold. "Meet me," he said firmly. "Tell me everything." There was a pause. Then Esther whispered, "I will, but be careful. She will not go down without a fight." The call ended. Kunle stared ahead as the road stretched before him. He had thought the worst was over. He was wrong. Kunle looked down at his phone just as a new message appeared from an unknown sender. "Stop digging, or the next accident will not end in survival." Kunle read the message again. "Stop digging, or the next accident will not end in survival." His hands tightened around the phone, but his face stayed calm. He did not scream. He did not panic. For the first time since that rainy day, Kunle felt something clear inside him. Resolve. He looked at his mother sitting quietly in the car beside him, her hands folded on her lap, her face peaceful because she trusted him completely. "They cannot touch you anymore," he said softly. "I promise." Kunle turned the car around. He did not go to the private hospital he had planned. He drove straight to his office, the tallest building his company owned. By the time he arrived, his lawyer, 2 senior board members, and a private investigator were already waiting. Kunle placed his phone on the table. "They threatened my mother," he said, "so now we end this." The private investigator nodded. "We have enough already. Witnesses, videos, medical reports, and now, threats." Kunle made one call. By noon, the story had reached places money could not silence. Former staff members came forward, neighbors gave statements, records appeared, about the elderly house help, about other quiet cases buried with settlements. The pattern was no longer hidden. That evening, Ifeoma was called in for questioning. She never came back to the house. Kunle did not visit her. He did not argue. He did not try to save appearances. He filed for divorce that same night. Not with anger, with finality. Days later, Kunle moved his mother into a quiet home by the sea. Not a place of abandonment, but a place of care. Nurses spoke gently, music played softly, the air smelled of salt and peace. "Mama," Kunle said one evening as he wheeled her onto the balcony, "are you happy here?" She smiled, her face turned toward the sound of the waves. "I feel safe," she said. "That is enough." Kunle held her hand, tears finally falling, quietly, freely. News traveled fast. The woman who once hid cruelty behind beauty and marriage now hid from the world itself. Friends disappeared, doors closed, silence followed her everywhere. No shouting, no revenge, just consequences. Kunle rebuilt his life slowly, carefully, choosing kindness where he once trusted appearances. He spoke openly about protecting the weak. He funded shelters. He listened more. And his mother, once pushed into the rain, lived her remaining days wrapped in dignity, love, and peace. Because in the end, Kunle learned the truth too late, but acted in time. A heart without kindness will always destroy itself, no matter how rich it looks from the outside. If you loved this story, kindly subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button, and in the comments, tell us what lesson did you learn from this story. Turn on notifications so you never miss our stories. Share this video with your friends and family. Thank you for watching and see you in the next interesting story, bestie.